The ninth most asked question. How long did it take the Israelites to cross the Red Sea? That's a good question. Natalie looks eager to jump in here.
Yeah, I would think that it took them hours, and for over 1 million people, was it, that crossed and came out of Egypt, and if they were, and it was in the middle of the night, so I'm sure many of them were very, very tired. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, I think it's several hours, up to maybe a day or so is what I've heard. And you're right, it was about 1 million people that crossed.
How big is the Red Sea there? Do we know?
Well, the Red Sea itself is kind of long. I mean, if you think of sort of the shape of Florida, that's kind of how the shape of the Red Sea is, how it just kind of works its way upward.
But where they crossed it.
But where they crossed, there's some dispute, but there are places where it's fairly shallow, and we're talking about maybe less than a mile.
Okay.
Easily, you could easily just look across, and maybe you can't throw a stone over it, but it was not too long. Oh, there we go. We got an image of it.
I think I think there was an archaeologist, I can't remember his name right now, that went and, kind of put some cameras into the Red Sea, and he found like a platform, a raised upper bed. I think Wyatt was his last name.
Yeah, I think Ron Wyatt.
Yeah.
His viewpoints aren't widely adopted, but I find them very interesting. I think what you're describing, Natalie, was what he said would look like a chariot on its side that had then been covered by coral. So now the chariot is decomposed, but you can see where the coral had grown around and encased the chariot.
Yeah, he found like various Egyptian artifacts towards the bottom of the sea, but this was probably over 20 years ago that I saw his material, and it was interesting that he suggested there was like this raised platform, and I know there are some people who don't agree with everything he says, but I thought that was interesting, and it must have taken hours and hours. But the Bible gives the impression that the next day, when the cloud was lifted, and then the Pharaoh's army rushed through. So it gives me the impression that it might have taken the whole of the night hours, maybe right before sunset, and then once the morning came up and the Egyptians could see what was actually happening, and the cloud was lifted up, that they rushed through, and that they were able to see all the bodies on the shoreline. So I don't think it was more than a 24-hour period.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I read the Bible too, in Exodus.
That may have been inferred from.